Hey everyone, this is Caroline Jensen, and I'm going to walk you through an edit that someone requested that I show my steps on. Now, this was an outtake. This wasn't an image that I wanted to keep. It was one from the cutting room floor, if you will, and I was glancing through some older work and I decided to edit it. So the first thing that I want to talk about is, working with a light source that's kind of unconventional and also not having a proper studio. Somebody in one of the comments for the final picture asked if I had, what I had used as a background. And really, I hadn't done anything at all. This is just outside of her bedroom, and I had an ice light that I was playing with. So there wasn't any true setup as far as a studio goes. Now, let's see here if I can find the final. This is the final image that I'm working towards, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I don't do the same things twice. When I'm editing, usually it's just sort of an organic process, and I don't always remember. I sometimes flatten things, so I'm just going to kind of touch on the things that are important to me to get this kind of a look. Okay, so to start out, I'm just going to change the crop just a little bit, like that, not too much. And I have a preset which I shared on Clickin' Moms, and it's called Warm Workflow, and I'm going to hit that right now. Now, that looks markedly different from the final one, so I'm going to show you how I tweaked that. First of all, I'm going to go down here to the tone curve, and well, actually, let's change that. First of all, I'm going to go down and take the exposure down to about negative 1.25-ish. There you go. And then up the highlights a little bit. Now, obviously, the blacks are really blocked up here. This isn't really what we're looking for, so I could address it here, but I decided to go down to the tone curve to address it. Now, I have quite a bit of contrast going on here with this little jut out from the left. I'm going to bring that back to the edge, and right away it softens everything. Do you see how it went from being pretty blocked up to being nice and soft? Okay, that's getting us a lot closer to where I wanted to go. Now, it's still not quite bright enough. You'll see that the final is quite a bit brighter, but we'll get there. The next thing that I want to do is lower the warmth factor a little bit. It was a bit too warm. I do have in this preset a lot of warming that goes on down here in calibration, not necessary for this one. Now I might want to up the overall exposure by using the tone curve. I'm just upping this bump a little bit. And now I'm going to kind of clean up the background here. I've got a hinge on my old door that's kind of an eyesore, so I'm just going to get rid of that quickly. Not really in a very precise way. We're just going to kind of block it out. Now, the remainder of the edit was taken care of in Photoshop, so I'm going to pause and take you over there. All right, so I'm going to make another confession. I cannot remember which textures that I used on the previous time, the original edit, but I'm going to kind of walk you through the process anyway here. The textures that I chose to use on this image were taken from, let me see which collection it was, from the Wuthering Heights collection from Jessica Drawson. And I just picked a couple. So I'm going to just lay them on top and see what happens. All right, so I'm going to use the Moors first, and how I go about that is to do Command A, Command C, and then go back and Command V. Command A to select all, Command C to copy, and Command V as in Victor to paste. Now, I know I used, I think I used lighten mode in one, and then lower the opacity, and you can see right away how that starts to get that painterly look. Lighten mode is one of my favorite ways to get a painterly effect, especially if you have darker areas. Now, I could go down here to, like 24%, and then I can throw on a layer mask by going to the little TV icon at the bottom here. You can't see it, it's off the screen. And then I'm just going to take a brush, make it kind of large, I'm going to hit number 2, which makes it 20%, and then hit X to make this black, because that will help to conceal some of the texture there. And just you know, go over the areas where I want it to be sharper in focus, very lightly. And now let's just go to another one here. I'm not sure if I use this one again. Command A, Command C, go back here, Command V. And let me just do soft light and see what happens. Again, that's really pretty. I like that a lot. Another one might be overlay, which is going to be a little bit more intense. There's also multiply, which I could use at a lower opacity. Again, adding a layer mask and, you know, taking it off of certain areas. And what I wanted to point out, more so than the exact steps, was the fact that as I add these textures, do you see how the understanding of where she is starts to disappear? We start to lose the understanding that she's standing in front of a doorway with, you know, some molding there. We start to lose all of that, which is, you know, ultimately what I'm hoping for, to sort of get rid of the background entirely. Now another thing I can do here is, and I'm just going to go back to the background and do Command J, and of course this is all happening underneath the textures, but one of the things I like to do is just to take my lasso tool and just lasso the areas that are still pretty recognizable, you know, like that, and then we're just going to feather it by about 50, and then I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and just blur it out really simply. I didn't do anything special. It's just using it. If you can look over here, you can see that the Gaussian blur just makes those lines from the molding just kind of disappear. Nothing really fancy at all. I might want to go again and do another go at it up here. Again, just making sure my feather is about 50, and then Filter, Blur, just Gaussian blur. To make it go away. And then you're going to just want to finesse it a little bit. I'll show you what I actually ended up doing. I did do some dodging and burning. I have some actions that do dodging and burning. You can do that in Lightroom or in Photoshop. That's where I might want to increase the highlights in little areas or burning. But for the sake of time, I don't want this to get too long. I wanted to keep it under 10 minutes. What I'm going to do is just kind of finish it off for you. I go up to the top layer and I hit Command Option Shift E. Command Option Shift E, and that makes a stamp of all the previous edits. So I could really, you know, unclick all of these and it wouldn't matter, because this is a kind of a compilation of everything I've done so far. And then I'm going to go to Filter. I like to use Alien Skin Snap Art. Whoops. And let's bring this in here. I don't have my window big enough to really see it, but let's zoom in here so you can kind of see what's going on. I like to use the oil paint filter at a very realistic level. As you can see here, it's very much photographic, yet you can see the texture on the skin, but it's not overly painterly. I might take some of it off the hair there. What I'm doing is under detail masking, you can do a couple different areas where you can dial in the effects that you want. In this case, the key is photorealism, and that's the main slider that makes sure that it looks more like a photograph. And then I just go down here to apply and add that. Let's go back here to the picture. Make my window a little smaller. Oops. It's not liking me right now. Let's get that out of there. All right, well, it's not going to let me go. Let me pause it. All right, so I had a little bit of a crash with Alien Skin Snap Art. I had to redo it, but when we zoom in here, you can just see that it gives it sort of a painterly effect, which I love. Then I would finish this off with some dodging and some burning. And I mentioned that before, but for just clarity, what I do for dodging and burning is really simple. I just make a little curves bump here with adjustments, and then I go into the layers and I invert that by hitting Command I and take a small brush at a lower opacity, about 20%, and I'm going to zoom way in here with the brush, make it nice and small, and I just, actually this is highlights, so this is going to make it a little bit brighter. Go over the highlight areas. And then for burning, I go to adjustments and do another curve and just bring it down in the middle. Go back to layers and do Command I, and then take a small brush and do the same thing. I can just make it nice and dark. I can emphasize that was a little bit too much. Make sure you use a really soft brush with it, so you don't want to use a harsh brush at all. And I just did some gentle work. Now, going back to Lightroom, you'll see that they're markedly different. The one that I did. Let's go back here. Whoops. Got the spinning ball of death. This is a little bit different because I use different color textures, but I can finish this up in Lightroom. It takes a while for it to save. I'm a minute and 44 over what I wanted to be, so I'm going to wrap this up. But that's the basic overall process. Different textures will render different colors, different warmth levels, and I always bring things back into Lightroom here to mess with it a little bit more. I could warm it up a little bit or not. I can up the contrast. What I love about Alien Skin Snap Art particularly is I have the ability to really mess with the contrast usually without it causing too much clipping or in the shadows. I don't know why it is, but I can up the contrast more with that program as a layer. And I think I went in and did some, whoops, I know I did this. I went in and I lowered the exposure, used a gradient or graduated filter, and just darkened up the edges there a little bit. That might be too much. And I did some other work down here to just blur things out. But that is overall my method. I hope that that helps. I'm trying to find the final. That was the final. All right, thank you so much. Thank you for your patience. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you. Bye-bye.